Okay, so here's a very sort of contemporary problem. Masks. Everybody's favourite.
Yeah.
It's become a whole area of fashion on its own right. I mean, how do masks prevent effective communication? What would you say the main areas were that it hinders?
So like the big thing in like communicating with people that you're always told is projecting your voice, and it's physically impossible to do with a mask on because it is just muffling the noise that is coming out of your mouth, and sort of like, I don't know the science behind it, but obviously how sound waves move, they can't do it the same through a mask.
Yeah, no, that's.
I think. Sorry, I think also reading facial expressions as well, because obviously that's a big way you communicate when you read someone's facial expressions.
Yeah,
that is brilliant. I mean, just thinking back to what we were looking at with regard to the importance of non-verbal communication, you know, if basically 55% of the communication process has suddenly been taken away because you're wearing a mask, it's hardly surprising that suddenly communication becomes quite difficult. I was in a shop at the weekend trying to return some clothes, and it was really understand what the lady was saying, because I was talking through a screen and a mask, and so it entirely interrupts the sort of the communication process. Anything else that sort of hinders effective communication wearing a mask?
I almost think sometimes, like, I don't know if anyone else feels like
this, especially if someone has hearing problems. Obviously, when you do sign language, you move your mouth as well.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic point. Sorry, Kate, Holly, were you going to say something else?
Yeah, what was it? I can't remember now. Oh yeah, like almost like, I think a lot of people have like an attitude towards wearing masks that they almost like can't be bothered to make like those little polite small talk things, because like it's just an effort, because then like you have to repeat yourself, and like no one likes speaking in a mask, so people are actually just not doing those little like, oh, you're all right, because they just literally cannot be bothered, and it's not through laziness, it's just through like it's such a hassle.
Absolutely. So communication becomes sort of tiring almost, and so people don't want to do it because it's just too much to do. And I think you sort of nailed it when you said actually the reason for that is the fact that you've got rid of all this sort of non-verbal communication, as well as the things like the fact that it's muffled, and so you can't hear what the person's saying to you. I mean, here's some sort of key points that I sort of discovered when I was researching this topic. Muffled sounds, particularly high-pitched sounds, low-pitched frequencies travel a lot further than high-pitched frequencies. It's why things like foghorns are very low-pitched, because they travel further. And so if you've got a high-pitched voice, you're going to find it harder to communicate than if you have a very deep voice. You also reduce. Sorry, you're going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say actually that makes quite a lot of sense, because I have a high-pitched voice, and when I visit my grandpa, who is like 98% deaf, he can hear my dad, but he cannot hear a word. That it's like I haven't even spoken. So that does actually make quite a lot of like rings true.
Yeah, absolutely. It's high-pitched sounds don't travel as far. So, I mean, one of the other things is it reduces the ability to read facial expressions, like we've said. And when you're saying about, you know, people don't want to sort of chat anymore, part of that is the fact that it's just uncomfortable. You know, I went to one of the shops the other day and I was going to buy something, and I'd got this face mask on and I had it on for a while, and I just got hot and stuffy. I thought, I can't be bothered with this. And I just ended up leaving. Not because they'd done anything wrong. It just was horrible. I just didn't like wearing the mask anymore, so I left. So that then kind of brings up the question of, okay, if that's the problem that we have, or if they're the problems we have, what can we do differently to make it so that we can communicate effectively? Any ideas?
We all have to carry a blackboard and a pen, write everything down.
I love that idea. You know what? Nobody's ever come up with that. I love it. It's a great idea. Yeah. Any other ideas?
I think maybe using more like using hand gestures and things like that to obviously emphasize what you're talking about would probably help as well.
Yep, definitely. Yep. So you're almost you sort of because you can't get the fine sort of stuff in your facial expression, you're just overcompensating with sort of larger expressions. Yeah, absolutely. Anything else for that one?
I mean, I think it's quite maybe like an outside the box thing to think, but if our future in, you know, the world is wearing face masks, I find sign language really interesting, and most nurseries and preschools and stuff will teach on, because a lot of the students do use it. And is that something that is going to be part of the curriculum, that we will be teaching more people to use British Sign Language and Makaton as children in order to communicate when we're older?
That's a really, really interesting idea. It's definitely outside the box. It's kind of run away from the box, and it's a long way away from it. I think that's absolutely fantastic. It's a really interesting point. You know, with my background in working with special needs kids, I trained in Makaton, and for everybody, I mean, I'm assuming, Holly, you understand what Makaton is. Katie and Laura, are you aware of what Makaton is?
No, it's not something from.
Okay, sorry, Laura.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's Makaton isn't sign language. It's not there to replace speech for people who can't hear. It's there as an additional form of communication for people who either can't understand what's being said or have moderate hearing problems. And so when you're doing British Sign Language, you don't say and you don't make a noise, you just do the signs. Whereas with Makaton, you do the signs at the same time as talking, and the signing then makes up for or adds to the sort of spoken word, so people can understand it more clearly. And actually, you know what, that's a great idea, Holly. I think something like Makaton, because it's relatively easy to learn and remember, will be a great thing to use as an additional communication aid. Don't think we're quite there yet, but I think I'd love that one. That's great. And again, it's compensating for the lack of sort of the finer kind of non-verbal communication sort of things that are then missing. Here are some sort of ideas. I did a lot of research and had a look at what some of the sort of more informed people are saying with regards to how you can communicate more effectively wearing a mask. Because in many ways, this isn't a new problem. In some parts of the world, people wear masks routinely. You know, all over the world, people have visual or hearing problems that you know, they struggle to communicate with. So actually, this isn't a new problem. It's just a new problem to us who haven't had to sort of deal with it. And I mean, these are some of the key sort of points that I've discovered that a lot of people who kind of know their thing are saying. So yeah, use your hands and your body language, as you were saying, Katie. Ask your partner if they understood you. So sort of confirm that they've understood you know, what you've been saying to them. And then there you go, Laura, like you're saying with your blackboard, write it down if you need to. If you're talking with somebody new, ask if there's anything you can do to make the communication easier. So you don't know if one of your clients or customers, you know, has some sort of a problem that's going to interfere with that. Maybe it's a hearing problem, maybe it's a learning disability, but just find out, you know, is there anything I can do to sort of help with this communication? Move to a quiet place sounds really obvious, but you know, and it's easy, it's obvious, it's doable. Just find somewhere quiet where you can actually hear one another. Not always possible. It's certainly something that most people can do. Face your partner directly, make sure there's nothing blocking your view other than the face mask or the screen. Again, another fairly obvious one. And just make sure you've got your communication partner's attention. Make sure they are actually focusing on you, that they're making the, you know, the head gestures, the nodding, to make sure that you do sort of understand what's actually being said. And also confirm at the end, you know, have you understood? Do I need to explain that any further? It's just sort of spending that little bit more time during that communication, just that little bit more effort, just to make sure that you know, both sides of the sort of communication are sort of understanding what's being said.